Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Manchester United face a panic and a potential issue with John Murtough and Erik ten Hag in charge for the summer transfer window if they cannot get Dan Ashworth in time. And this is not speculative. This is coming in from reports today that it's already unlikely from some sources that Dan Ashworth, even if they get this deal done, can have an impact on the summer transfer window this year. What a big blow that would be. How would that even happen? Why would Ineos allow John Murtough to run a transfer window? Doesn't make much sense. We'll talk about where this is coming from because it would be panic stations. We've also got the latest on the developing situation with Dan Ashworth and Newcastle and what's happening and why Newcastle are hypocrites. We'll also be talking about Bruno Fernandes. A lot of people starting to turn on Bruno and say it's time to go. Ridiculous, moron patrol I call it, but not for the reasons you think. I've got no problem with people having a problem with Bruno. It's more about the fact that people just aren't thinking about the bigger picture. So we'll delve into that as well. Also going to be giving away some memberships, probably about 40. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Eric Ramsey, the set-piece coach, might be heading to the MLS. What else? I want to talk about Blanc, Jean-Claude Blanc, the board member at Man United, coming in with Ineos and what a big impact he's having already, especially in relation to Dan Ashworth. So lots to get on with. Just Kevin says, lucky escape. I mean, if I hear somebody say lucky escape about Luton again, I'm just going to walk. I'm going to walk. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm a bit late on the show today. This is my first live show of the day and I don't feel great. I don't know what it is. I feel like I'm on the verge of something. So bear with me with the show tonight. But I'm very glad to be with you people and you normally give me a lift in a mood way, not in a other way. Anyway, so let's get into it. This story, I'm just going to start with where the story's coming and then we'll pick the pips out of it really. So it's coming in from Rob Dawson, ESPN. He's been on the show before. He says that Manchester United made a formal offer for Newcastle sporting director Dan Ashworth, but are not willing to pay what they believe to be excessive compensation for his services. And this has been sourced to ESPN. United made him a top target in the overhaul of the football operations set up by Ineos. Obviously this was what Newcastle had today. Their CEO, Darren Eales, says, we're naturally disappointed that Dan has chosen to leave. However, our exciting journey doesn't stop and the process to recruit a new sporting director will begin immediately. So Newcastle have acknowledged that Dan Ashworth is going to go. They've put him on gardening leave. Apparently, they want somewhere above 10 million. They believe they're well protected because of the contract he signs and would be within their rights to demand a fee of more than 10 million. Ashworth is currently on gardening leave for as long as 20 months, although Newcastle would allow it to be cut shorter for an additional payment. And reports have suggested they want as much as £20 million for that. However, United, who have concerns about breaching profits and sustainability rules, are conscious that they would not want to help Newcastle fix their own financial difficulties while making their own worse. However, this is the big bit. A source has told ESPN that it is growing increasingly likely that United will look to pay a lower amount of compensation with Ashworth, serving at least some gardening leave, possibly until February 2025. I mean, this is concerning. So we would pay a lower fee to Newcastle, but not get Dan Ashworth for another year. Obviously, Eddie Howe has acknowledged the enormity of this situation. He said, with regards to Dan Ashworth taking valuable information to Newcastle, they've said he's in a valuable position with a lot of intelligence, a lot of information, and a lot of power. And Newcastle will be concerned about that. However, ESPN have also been told it is already unlikely that Ashworth will be able to have any influence over the summer transfer window, which will be the first officially overseen by Sir Jim and his Ineos team, led by Sir David Brailsford. And United have already started planning for the summer with Ten Hag and current football director John Murtough. I mean, look, there's a lot to this. What are your thoughts on it? I think that straight away, we don't. I put my hands up here. We don't know what's going to happen. What's basically being said is that Newcastle are furious, understandably, even though they're hypocrites. Newcastle are furious because Manchester United have taken their director of football. 2 years ago, Newcastle took Brighton's director of football and Brighton were a better team than Newcastle. So, sorry, pull the ladder up, Jack, and cry me a river of your tears. I couldn't give a toss about Newcastle and their moaning because Brighton were better than them and they took the director of football because they were richer than Brighton. So, hashtag deal with it. But it doesn't solve the problem that he probably does have a contract that prevents him from going to another club for 20 months, which is over a year and a half. That'll be the contract. I'm pretty sure Dan Ashworth will have signed it, which leaves us in a difficult situation because Newcastle are going to say, we want 20 million quid. Otherwise, you're not having him for 20 months. And Manchester United are in a position where they either pay the £20 million and they get him in now, or they wait for a year and they pay a bit less. But if you wait for a year's a long time in football. The sale of Man United was a year, and look how that messed us up. So I don't get the logic of bringing in the guy that's going to rebuild the club, but not getting him for another year. I don't get the logic. Let's go into the biggest summer transfer window yet without the guy that's meant to be the director of football. So I think there's a lot to resolve here for Manchester United, and I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are. My personal feeling is, and it might be opposed to what everybody is saying at the moment, my personal opinion is the 20 million quid is worth it, because John Murtough is the guy that paid 80 million pounds for Anthony. John Murtough is the guy that paid 55 million pounds for Mason Mount. John Murtough is the guy that overpays on every player. Well, 20 million for Dan Ashworth, I'm sorry, is going to be a very, very significant amount of money for a director of football, but you're going to save it straight away on the players that he goes and buys. So it's cum si cum sa, isn't it? It swings and roundabouts. It's the balance. John Murtough overpays and everybody sees him coming. If you go and get Dan Ashworth, you get a different set of players, a better set of players for a better price anyway, and you save the money. So I'd just say, well, look, to be fair, Rowan says leave it, and Terp says, is it worth it? I mean, I've got to be honest. If the story's true, and I don't think it is, I'd question why we're getting Dan Ashworth. Why wait a year? I don't agree with waiting a year. I've got to put my hands up. You either pay the money and you get him, or you don't. You go and get someone else. Paul Mitchell's out there. There are other director of footballs. Because what's going to happen is, we'll wait a year for Dan Ashworth. Every other club has already got their structure in place. Spurs, Arsenal, and everyone else. And Newcastle will get a new director of football. And we'll wait there with a fucking dick in our hand for 12 months waiting around. Dicking around, quite simply. What's the point in poaching the best director of football but not being able to use him in a year? A year's a ridiculous amount of time in football. So I don't for 1 minute believe that United are going to wait a year for Dan Ashworth to save themselves 10 million quid. They'll get ridiculed for it. And Ineos have made so many positive steps forward. This to me strikes me as a Glazer decision. Let's get the best director of football we can, but let's not pay for him and wait for his contract to run out for a year. Come on. So what we're basically saying is that Manchester United's future doesn't start till the summer of 2025. It doesn't make any sense to me. It really doesn't. I can only read you the news. I can only tell you what the rumours are. But to me, this doesn't strike me as what Ineos are all about. They went and got Omar Barada from under the noses of Manchester City. You're telling me that we've gone and swooped in and got Dan Ashworth, and then we've gone, but you don't start till February 2025, and what are we going to do for a year? I mean, it's the most illogical thing ever, isn't it? It's like saying to your wife, I'm going to leave you because I've met somebody that I really am in love with. But guess what? I'm not moving out for a year. We're still having a holiday in the summer. We're still going to bed. We're still going to have a Christmas together. And in a year's time, I'm leaving you for somebody else. But we're not making any real plans for a year because really, I don't want to be with you. But we'll pretend I do. It doesn't make any sense. What does that do for John Murtough as well? I'm losing my job in a year. What if he starts doing really well? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And he'll have his own set of players that he wants. So it doesn't make sense to me, and I don't for 1 minute think that the way that Ineos have behaved so far, they've walked into a mess, and it would be a mess. It would be a mess to say we want Dan Ashworth, he wants to come to us, but we're not getting you for a year because you're too expensive, so we're going to put the club on a handbrake for another year. It doesn't make sense, does it? I think what happens here is, in the next few days, Dan Ashworth, Manchester United and Newcastle sort out a fee, and he's in place for the summer. Because if he's not, I'd question why we're bothering. And if I was Ten Hag, I would say, so we're getting the director of football that's going to really help me, but he's not coming in for another year. I've just had a really horrible 6 months where certain people have tried to get me the sack. You're going to give me another summer with a guy who doesn't know what he's doing, and you expect me to be here in a year. I'd be fuming if I was Ten Hag. I'd be saying, I've had 2 summers of Murtough, and I don't get what I want, and you're going to give me another summer of Murtagh, I'm going to lose my job by Christmas, and then the next guy is going to get the benefit of Dan Ashworth. Fuck that, mate. You know, so it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. Woodrow's tackle on Maguire, even though on yellow, never mentioned by Sky, yet never went fully in on Casemiro. What do you think, says Paul? You know what I think about Luton? I think 3 points. I think 4 wins in a row. I think 5 games unbeaten. I think 3 points behind Spurs. I think up yours to everyone who hates us. That's all I think. Ashworth will definitely make 20 million from selling youth players in his first summer. Also get Minnesota United to pay a couple of million for Eric Ramsey, says Kristen. Welcome to Members Club, Alan. And Nicholas says, but for sure, Ineos knows that they should wait a year, so I don't think it's true, says Nicholas. Isn't it negotiation tactics? I think so, Shaheen. Pay the 20 million. It shouldn't affect financial fair play structure, says Si. Oh, I agree with that as well. I've never heard that a director of football's wages or compensation comes out of FFP anyway. Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. But what I want to say is, I don't believe this. I think it would be stupidity, and Ineos don't strike me as stupid. So I might be in the minority here, but I don't for 1 minute think we're waiting till the summer to get this deal done, let alone February next year. And you know what? I'll say it as well. If Dan Ashworth's not going to be involved in the summer transfer window, we should have gone for Paul Mitchell, who's free. I think Dan Ashworth's good, but I also think Paul Mitchell's good. So why would you not get Paul Mitchell, who can walk in a month ago and be part of the summer transfer window, to wait for Dan Ashworth for a year? I just don't see it happening. I really don't see it happening. But I guess we'll wait and see. And I don't see Ineos being stupid. Right, just going to take a breath here because I just want to donate some memberships before we move on. But look, get your comments in as always. We are going to be talking about some other stuff as always as well, but hopefully this is going to work. Oh, don't do this to me now. Where is it? Why is that not working? Oh, here we go. So we've got 5 memberships going out now, and I should have another 5 coming for you as well. There we go. That's not what I want. The free stuff never seems to go well, does it? Okay, and okay, so there should be 10 going out there for you in the chat. Thank you very much. Lovely stuff. Lovely stuff. That worked. There we go. What did I talk about as well? Well, yeah, I wanted to move on to this. I wanted to move on this, but by all means, throw your comments in. I think that with Dan Ashworth, the latest with him with Newcastle is they put him on gardening leave. What is gardening leave? Well, gardening leave basically means that you've told them you want to go, but you're under contract and you have to honour that contract, whereby if you want to negotiate your way out of gardening leave, it's probably going to involve a bit of money. But of course, I understand the whole principle of a contract and I understand the whole principle of gardening leave. If Eric Ten Hag said he wanted to go and manage Barcelona tomorrow, we would say you're under contract for another year. You're not going to Barcelona until the summer at least, and we want compensation. So I'm not moaning at Newcastle for the fact that, you know, Dan Ashworth can't walk from one job to another. What's the point in running football clubs if players and managers and director of footballs can walk from one club to another the next day? That's why we have a transfer window. So look, I understand the fact that he's on gardening leave, but ultimately he's never going to work another day for Newcastle. So do they want to keep they're paying him £1.5 million a year as well. I'd consider that. He's the most expensive director of football in the Premier League. So if he stays at Newcastle for another year, I know it's only £1.5 million, but it's still £1.5 million and they've got to get someone else in. So I think there would be a negotiation process there. He literally could be cutting his grass at the moment because he can't do any work. Yeah, and but at least we've had those official statements and I expect it to move a lot quicker. There's talk of Newcastle, you know, basically saying that they're not, you know, they're not going to be bullied. They've got deep pockets themselves, and it's going to take patience. But Newcastle did this to Brighton. It's survival of the fittest. I'm convinced it will get sorted. I really, really am. The other thing I was going to say just very, very quickly, Eric Ramsey, who's brought in by Solskjaer, I believe, as the set piece coach. Apparently he's going to the MLS. Some people are a little bit concerned about this. I don't think he's done a good job. I don't. I don't know whether it's his fault, but set piece coach, United set pieces are crap. So I'm not that bothered about this. Some people were really concerned about this today, saying we finally get good at set pieces and he's leaving. We're not good at set pieces. Even yesterday, Ross Barkley nearly equalised at the end. Every cross into the box this season, I feel like we're going to concede. People focus on the fact that we don't score many set pieces, but we're terrible at crosses. So I'm not bothered about this. I mean, apparently he's really, really good at his job, and maybe he's not solely responsible for the fact that United aren't very good at set pieces. But I look at teams like West Ham, Luton, there's even Man City, Arsenal are brilliant at set pieces. It's not just, set pieces aren't just for David Moyes and the teams in the bottom half. Teams in title races are good at set pieces. We're really bad at them. So if Eric Ramsey leaves, then I'm sure United don't want him to go, but it actually could be a blessing in disguise. Spencer White, welcome to the Members Club. Thomas says, just like players' availability is the most important attribute, if Ashworth isn't available to be involved for over a year, then it has to be someone else. I agree. A year in football is too long to be waiting for anybody. It's too long. Is Dan using Manscaped while on gardening leave? Says Sakin. Dan V says, being put on gardening leave also means he has zero access or influence or on anything in the internal of that club, effectively being paid and shut out, says Dan. Matt Mitchell already told Ineos he's not interested, says Callan. Yeah, but I don't think Paul Mitchell told Ineos he wasn't interested in being the director of football. He told them he wasn't interested in being the assistant. So yeah. Sakin, thank you very much for gifting a membership there, and Tusha as well. And John says, seems like the main person who loses is Eric Ten Hag. He can never prepare for anything. Just shows this man is never helped or backed. Thank you very much. I've just realised something. Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. Scooby-Doo, I think you're absolutely correct. I think that Eric Ten Hag would be the big loser in this. I mean, I want to talk about Bruno, actually, and I want to talk about this. Has anyone seen that cartoon? It is a cartoon. It's a children's cartoon. Seb used to watch it. Paw Patrol. It's going to be a new section of the show called Moron Patrol. More on patrol, more on patrol. They'll get there on the double. And we're basically going to talk about, I saw it on a Twitter, I saw it on tweet today, where there was a bit of a back and forth going on between some United fans. And one United fan was basically saying, I think they were defending Bruno or maybe it was Ten Hag. And they were basically saying, why are some of our fans so stupid? They demand for us to replace somebody, but they never have an alternative. And then the other person was saying, well, it's not fans' responsibility to have an alternative. We can just have an opinion. And I completely disagree. I think if you're going to be hypothetically replacing somebody, then you should hypothetically have the responsibility of who you're going to replace them with. You can't just be a spoilt brat and say, sack Ten Hag, but I don't know who to get. Or get rid of Rashford, but I don't know who to replace him with. I mean, surely we're better than that as fans. We can't. I don't understand that. I don't understand that logic. Yeah, get rid of the manager, but it's not my responsibility to know who to replace him with. That's the job of the club. Well, let it be the job of the club not to get rid of the manager then. I mean, the contradiction is baffling. But we will talk about that in a moment, because I think that if Eric Ten Hag had to have another summer transfer window with John Murtagh, it would absolutely terrify me on two levels. First level would be that he's had two summer transfer windows that didn't go the way that he wanted to go. And the second thing would be, we know that Ten Hag has a lot of power under the current transfer regime. And I think there's plenty of coaches out there that are brilliant coaches, but their talent identification for transfers isn't actually that good. I think Thomas Tuchel at Bayern Munich, I think he's a good coach, but I don't think his recruitment of talent is that great when you look at Chelsea and what you look at Bayern Munich either. So I think if Ten Hag has to have a summer transfer window with Murtagh, it's a bad thing on two levels. One, Ten Hag's recruitment hasn't been brilliant himself, but also he doesn't tend to get everybody that he wants. So I think it's massively in Ten Hag's favour to have someone like Dan Ashworth in as well. Seems like the main person who loses Ten Hag. Exactly, John. I agree with that. Can we swap a player for Ashworth, says Si? Well, there might be something you can do there. Do you think it's a problem that Dan leaves job a lot, says Ben? Well, where does Dan Ashworth go after Man United? I mean, I think there's only Real Madrid, really. Dan Ashworth is in gardening leave at Newcastle. He needs to come in now, says Sakin. Yeah, I completely agree. Angry Jawa says, can we pay them $5 million and wait for the winter window to acquire Ashworth? Find an interim for the summer, Ranić, then Newcastle is out of a director of football. Check, says Angry. Thanks for the membership, Mark, says Kristen. Let's go. Austin McPhee from Villa as a set-piece coach, says Kristen. And hi, Mark, what you're talking about is giving me flashbacks from the war last night. I'm lucky I can still walk. The workout with the missus was intense. Dan. Punch Paint, welcome to the Members Club. And Ramsey was a friend's hire, McKenna's college mate, says Rahul. There you go. Well, I for one, don't think it's a major thing if he goes, because I think we are one of the worst set piece, worst in the league on set pieces. Apparently that was your 20th super chat on a live stream, Rahul, by the way. It just flashed up underneath it. Well done. Ryle, thank you very much for your support. Ryle says, hi Mark, if Newcastle don't sell Ashworth to United, what do you think of United having a policy of never doing business with Newcastle? Keep up the great work, says Ryle. Dan Ashworth's coming to Man United now. I don't think there's any way that Man United can back out. He can't go back to I mean, this is one thing that's very, very important. When you hand in your notice and you put on gardening leave, certain conversations take place on both sides that basically break the relationship. It's sad, but Newcastle and Dan Ashworth's situation is broken. If Man United pulled out, Dan Ashworth is up the creek without a paddle. And Newcastle won't take him back because they can't. Their fans know the story. So he has to come to Manchester United now. I agree with what somebody said earlier. I think this is just a bargaining process whereby Manchester United have to end up with Dan Ashworth as their director of football ASAP, and we can't be waiting until after the summer. I've never heard anything so stupid as we're getting Dan Ashworth, but he won't be involved in the summer transfer window and we're going to use Murta. I've never heard something as shit as that in my life, because Murta will be looking at players that we shouldn't be looking at. And he probably won't get them anyway. So this cannot be. Ineos's first summer has to be groundbreaking. It has to be clear out and it has to be bring in. John Murta couldn't clear out his garden shed. Like, look at the last couple of summers. He's not cleared anybody out. This is the guy that can't get rid of Donny van der Beek. You know, this is the guy that still has Anthony Martial running his contract down. We can't have a summer of John Murta in running the club. And I think John Murta's tried his best, but the best hasn't been good enough. It's not personal, is it? I don't think we'll do for the things we have anyway. Even if Ashworth isn't there, the structure will be another appointment. Ineos won't allow it, says Levi. Yeah, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, look, move it on a little bit. We can always come back to that. Please do smash a like on the video, of course. I think there is a bit of a negativity movement going on in our fan base at the moment. I've had 24 hours to sort of digest that Luton win, this nonsense of a lucky escape. And I did the football fill-in with Ben Foster today, which I don't know if it's out actually yet. And we were talking about, and I spoke about it on the United Stand with Ben as well. You look at that Luton game back, we should have, if everybody took the chances they should have done, we would have won 5-2. We won 2-1. So I don't know why it's a lucky escape, because we had the best chances in the game, way more than they did. Luton have had some good results this season. It was a good result for Manchester United. But I just think there's just a weird. I just hope Ineos are wide awake to this. The vast majority of our fan base wants this manager to have structure and be given another year. But there are some vocal minorities on social media and on in the media who are still pushing this negativity around Ten Hag because they've made their minds up and they want him to go. And you know what it is? Whether it's journalists, ex-players or fans, no one ever, they never wanted Ten Hag. They wanted Pochettino. And in life, whether it's your granddad at Christmas playing cards or it's somebody down the pub who doesn't want to get around in, people have an ulterior motive where they want to win. And if somebody didn't want Ten Hag, and some of these media pundits didn't, then they want to get proven right deep down, whether they support United or not. And if fans of Manchester United have decided a couple of months ago that they're Ten Hag out, they would rather get proven right about that than actually support the team that they want, because they're selfish. They're stubbornly selfish about what they want and not what's best for the fan base or Manchester United. It's just normal behaviour. And I'm wide open to it now. I'm not going to get frustrated about it. I think it's preposterous. I think it's stupid. I think it's the moron patrol. But look, it's life. Everybody's got a different opinion. I find it incredible that we've won 4 games in a row, which nobody below Arsenal, Liverpool and Man City are going to do this season. Somebody will, but I don't think it's easy to do. Anybody below the top 3 is going to, is doing well if they win 4 games in a row. And people say, well, it took a last-minute winner against Wolves. We should have beat Wolves anyway. Wolves got a dodgy penalty. We should have won that game. It shouldn't have needed a last-minute winner. We comprehensively smacked West Ham up. Against Villa, we're away from home and we won the game. Yeah, they could have won the game, but we did. And against Luton, it wasn't fucking close. We made it close. We should have killed them 4 or 5-1. So 4 wins, fully deserved, momentum, but their negativity still exists, and it's still going to exist. And I'll give you a freebie here. They're waiting for the Man City game, the best team in the world, the treble winners, at home. They're waiting for us to go to the Etihad and lose, and I guarantee you, 2 weeks in advance, I guarantee you, if we lose at the Etihad, they'll all be coming out, even if we've won the previous 5 in a row, this is what I told you, he ain't good enough. Look at us being passed off the park by the best team in the world. He needs to go. He needs to go. And this is what's going to happen. This is what is going to happen. So, look, just be wary. I think there are certain ex-players, there are certain journalists close to the club, and there are certain fans who are absolutely crying inside because they actually want us to sack Ten Hag so they can get proven right. And they're smiling through fake smiles at the moment. And they're loading the bullets about, well, the style of play. We haven't played good football in over a decade. Where's this style of play bollocks come from? Oh, I know we're winning and I'm enjoying it, but the style of play's horrific. Oh, Jeffrey and Bungle. I mean, the style of play's been shit for 10 years. We haven't played a good style of football for 10 years. I mean, some of these people would have been in nappies the last time we played good football. So, style of play is a holy grail for Man United, and we should demand it. But we can't be demanding it in the middle of a shit season. Results are the most important thing. And if you want a style of play, then maybe you should be championing and supporting the team to get Champions League football so we earn more money and can bring better players in. You're not going to get a style of play, and I'm not naming the players, but you're not going to get a style of play out of some of those players. And I don't get it. I don't get it. We've won 4 games in a row, and people are talking about, well, yeah, the results are good, but the style of play. And I'm like, hold on a minute. Why do you think teams like West Ham don't play good football? Yeah, David Moyes is a big factor, but look at the players David Moyes has. He can't play Ten Hag, David Moyes can't press a button and play like Man City. Well, but Ange has done it. We're 3 points behind fucking Ange. We'll be level with them at the weekend if we beat Fulham. And they've only got one way of playing, and they're massively easy to get at on the break. So, style of play isn't going to cut the mustard for you lot if we play like Ange and we bottle top 4. You'll be going, wow, he needs to be a bit cleverer at the back. Style of play is what Man City do. Strong defence and a good style of football. Style of play is what Arsenal do. Strong defence and an attacking style of football. Style of play is what Liverpool do. Strong defence and an attacking style of football. Style of play is not Villa and Spurs. We'll finish above them. They're shipping goals all over the place because they've only got one way of playing. What we need is not fucking Ange and not Emery. We need to be what Pep, Klopp and Arteta are. And that doesn't happen with the players that we've got. You've got to have ball-playing defenders who are good defenders. You've got to have good ball-playing midfielders. And you've got to have consistency right the way through the team. Martinez has missed most of the season. Luke Shaw is injury-prone. Casemiro's missed nearly half of the season as well. And, we've got a front 3 that's very exciting, and Kobe Mainoo's very exciting. Bruno's massively out of form. We're going to talk about him in the moment. Call it out. What are people talking about style of play when we don't have the players to play the way that Man City, Liverpool and Arsenal is? Because that's what we're talking about here. Spurs can fuck off with their style of play. It's vulnerable. Arsenal can fuck off. Aston Villa, can fuck off with their style of play. It's vulnerable. I like Spurs and I like Villa, but they ain't winning the bloody league. When we talk about style of play, it's Liverpool, Arsenal and Man City. And the big thing that stands out for me is we're not going to play like that because Ten Hag wants to. We're going to have, if we want to play like those three clubs, we're going to have to buy more players and we're going to have to do what we've not done in a decade and actually clear some players out. Because I don't need to name names. Some of them played really well yesterday. But, you know, Johnny Evans was man of the match yesterday for me. But Johnny Evans is not going to get as a style of play playing like Liverpool, Man City and Arsenal. And he'd be the first person to put his hand up. Johnny Evans is going to play brilliantly in a game against Luton where it's defending and winning headers. But he's not going to push the line up and play passes through the lanes, is he? We need to buy better players. So this style of play bollocks, for me, is just another fake whip to hit Ten Hag with to try and force him out of the club, which I think is bollocks. Style of play doesn't guarantee results either. Well, it won't do. We won't have a style of play that's consistent. Sky Sports News is saying that Ollie's being considered to replace Tuchel. Oh my God. Danny, please tell me this is true. It's not April the 1st. I'd love to see Solskjaer at Bayern. Ollie's at the wheel. I love it. I'll love it. I'll bloody love it. I'd love it for him. It'd be great for football. You know, we only live once. I want to see this fantasy. Rory says, sup, Mark, if you have to call it right now, where do you think we finish? I think 5th and also think that will get us Champions League. Mate, if we get 4th place, I think it's incredible. As incredible as last season. If we get 5th place, I'll be very happy. And yeah, I think we've got to look at that. The way things stand at the moment, I think it will be Spurs and Man United 4th and 5th. And that should get us Champions League football. Off a lot of our players, I feel Onana is going to be under the eye a lot. The players' game was comfortable until that dodgy ball into the box, is Irish Zombie. Well, look, not my words. I do the football fill-in on a Monday, which is a podcast with Watto, who was a former goalkeeper and a former England goalkeeping coach, and Ben Foster. I didn't really pick up on it on the game, but they said that Onana on that goal is not done his job. That basically they said that Morris, the Luton striker, should be shitting himself and heading that wide if he dares to head it, because a normal goalkeeper would come and clear him out. He'd actually come and clear him out. You might give a foul away, but you'd come and clear him out. Standing and doing a starfish a metre away isn't good enough. I mean, I didn't really pick up on it, but that's just what 2 goalkeepers said. I mean, I wasn't intending to talk about it any more than that. Terence says, Ten Hag outers know nothing about football and should go and support another club. Small-minded moaners, says Terence. Look, I want to talk about Bruno now. Because I think there's a really good conversation here, and you could almost say Bruno reflects a lot of players at the club. So Bruno, as the captain, has to take that on his shoulders. He's got the captain's armband. He's the leader of the team. And whilst we're going to talk about Bruno, I also think you could take the comments about Bruno and attribute it to maybe a Rashford, a McTominay, Casemiro. I think Bruno is almost representative of Sancho and everybody else. So Andy says, Ollie being considered for Bayern, it's true. I'd love it, Andy. I'd bloody love it. And it's only for interim, says the Irish Sim. I don't care. I bloody love it, Irish Zombie. But maybe some of the Ten Hag outers can go and support Bayern then, because they tend to be Ollie inners as well. But anyway, my point is that I saw another ridiculous stat by Sky, actually, where I don't know who their bloody intern is doing these infographics, because last week it was that Saka's scored more goals than Ronaldo at his age, which I don't know what to do with that information. Are we saying that Saka's better than Ronaldo at his age? Bollocks. It's just pointless. But they had this other stat, which was United with Garnacho, Rashford and Højlund have this amazing win ratio, and without them, they don't. And I just thought, and it got so many retweets, and even the United Stand Twitter account retweeted it. And I thought, but this is complete and utter bollocks. I love Rasmus, I love Garnacho, and I think Rashford is much improved, and I've always liked Rashford. But I don't for 1 minute think Rasmus, Rashford and Garnacho are why we've won the last 4 games. I mean, I've watched them. I know why we've won them. Rashford, Rasmus and Garnacho are playing better because they've got more leadership and stability behind them. That's what's happening. The return of Martinez, Casemiro and Luke Shaw rejuvenated this team, gave it more confidence and more structure, and they're living off that now. And it's allowed Rasmus, Garnacho and Rashford to flourish. But I'm watching the games. Garnacho, Rashford and Højlund are not interchanging like an amazing front three. You know, Højlund's doing a brilliant job. But Garnacho and Rashford still need to do a lot more on the creative. They're not a front three like fucking Neymar, Suarez and Messi. They're not. There's a lot of work to be done there. The reason, and I'd argue this with anybody, the reason that we have turned this around over the last 4 games, well, where's Kobe Mainoo in this game? You know, the freedom that Kobe Mainoo's had with Casemiro sitting in behind him. Martinez coming back for that first couple of games was really, really important. Luke Shaw being back at left back's been massive. Casemiro was brilliant against Aston Villa and West Ham. So I don't think this is to do with that. And also, I mean, there's I just think this is what stats do. Stats send you down a fucking fake alley. The bottom line is United have won 4 games in a row, not because of Rasmus, Garnacho and Rashford, not because of Casemiro, not because of Martinez. Man United have won 4 games in a row because of Johnny Evans, because of Dalot, because of Onana in 1 game, because of Maguire, because of Luke Shaw, because of Casemiro, because of McTominay, because of Mainoo, because of Garnacho, because of Rashford, because of Rasmus. Collectively, they've done something that they haven't done all season. And they've very rarely done as a team for the last 10 years. Over the last 4 games, we've been a bit lucky. But you buy your luck when you stay in the fight. You can't win a boxing match if you go down in the 3rd round from the first punch on the chin. If you get up and stay in the fight, you might win it. United, for too long, have gone down early and been beaten. And what we've done in the last 4 games is we've stayed in the fight. We stayed in the fight against Villa when they were better than us in the second half, and we've got the winner. We stayed in the fight against Wolves when they, into stoppage time when we looked like we'd lost it. We stayed in the fight against Luton, despite missing loads of chances to win the game properly. We still kept going and defended well. And we stayed in the fight against West Ham. We have shown a unity as an 11 and the bench over the last 4 games, which has been admirable. And if we can keep that going, it will not be about the front 3 and it will not be about the back 4. It will be about the collective. And I think that's the thing that I wanted to shout out there. The team together has built a momentum. Like Jude says, loving the momentum going into Fulham. I don't think Dan would join knowing he'll be away from football for that long. Sakib has gifted 5 memberships as well. Absolute legend. And the Ten Hag outers, says the Irish Zombie, has a 60% win ratio. He can't play his system with players he's got. It's like trying to run a phone company with KFC. I mean, just on that, absolutely fact. Absolute fact. Eric Ten Hag has got the best win ratio in Manchester United's history. It's just over 60%, and I think Sir Alex's was about 59%. So, I just wish people would just accept that we need to give Ten Hag another season. And if you get proven wrong at the end of next season, fine. But stop trying to force him out when it really isn't the right thing to do at the right time. And as I've said before, I want to talk about Bruno now. But I nearly tweeted it last night, but I was just like, it's not going to work after a game where people are quite, not thinking about this sort of stuff. But every Man United fan I speak to, no matter who they want to get rid of, no matter what they think about the Glazers, whatever they think about the manager, every single fan I speak to, read about, all agrees with one thing. Well, they agree on a lot of things, but this is one of the things everybody agrees on and everyone tonight will agree with. We need to clear out in the summer. We're not talking 1 or 2. We're talking 5 to 10 players have got to go in the summer. Everybody agrees with that. We won't all agree about the same players, but we can all get between 5 and 10 players that have got to go. Because, to be honest, it doesn't take that much. Randomly, Donny, Martial, 2 of the centre-backs, probably Wan-Bissaka, Christian Eriksen. We're not even into the Sancho, Greenwood, Bruno's, Casemiro. You're easily going to get between 5 and 10 players, all of us, that have got to go this summer. If you sack the manager, that won't happen. We won't have a clear out if we change the manager, because the new manager, whether it's, I don't know who people want, actually. De Zerbi's going to Barcelona. There's talk of Hansi Flick going back to Bayern. So does everyone want Potter? I don't know who they want. Whoever we get walks in and goes, lads, let's have a cuddle. Ten Hag did it. Mourinho did it. Ollie did it. Van Gaal did it. Moyes did it. Lads, we're going on tour. Let's all have a cuddle. We're all having a cuddle. Forget the last manager. He's a wanker. It's my time. You're all getting a chance. Feel good factor. Come on. We're all going on tour together. I'm going to give everyone a second chance. And it's happened with every new manager we've got, and it probably happens at every other club. So if you want to clear out this summer, maybe if you're a Ten Hag outer, you might just want to wait a year, because the only person who's going to clear out people this summer is the manager we've got now. You change the manager, he walks in the door, and he'll go, I don't want to get rid of any of these players yet because I don't know who I want to keep and I don't know who he'll want to get rid of. Brilliant video at lunchtime. Brilliant video at lunchtime with Ben Foster. Now, I didn't know this. We were talking about all sorts of stuff, and it's about 5 minutes into the video. I'd urge every one of you to go and watch the video I did with Ben Foster at lunchtime, because about halfway in, we start talking about Dan Ashworth, and I didn't realise that Ben Foster was at West Brom when Dan Ashworth was there. So he's worked with him closely, and there's some really good 5-minute chat there about Dan Ashworth. But one of the things I can say is that he said, Dan Ashworth will get rid of dickheads. Doesn't matter how good they are. If they're a dickhead, he'll get rid of them, because he wants people in the team that are good eggs, that are going to bring something to that dressing room. He wants good players with good mentalities, and he will keep players around like that, but he won't keep good players who are dickheads. And that's what I mean. If you bring a new manager in, then they're going to have their own idea about what they want to do. Ten Hag might want to get rid of Wan-Bissaka, Varane, Harry Maguire, Scott McTominay, Sancho. You know, you might want to get rid of those 5 players. The new manager comes in and says, well, I don't want to get rid of those 5 players because the previous guy did. I'm not doing what the previous guy did. I'm my own man. I'll do what I want to do, and I'm going to give everyone a chance. So if you want to clear out in the summer, you've got to stick with Ten Hag, because there's no manager in the history of Manchester United, apart from Sir Alex Ferguson, and I don't know what he did in his first summer. I know he got rid of the drinking culture, etc. But there's not been a manager that's come into Man United in their first summer and gone, clear out time. And in fairness, how can you? You can't clear players out based on a previous manager's assessment. It's the one thing I wanted Ten Hag to do. Rangnick spoke about open heart surgery and had a list. And Ten Hag ignored it because I'm not listening to you. I'll figure it out. And he's had to wait a year to do it. We need to do that. It's so important this summer. Terence says, do you think that Bruno has burnt himself out? And Ollie at the wheel. Maguire for De Ligt swap incoming, says Kazale. Ross says, how many points do you think we'll get as Champions League football? On a non-United, Xavi Alonso might go to Bayern, according to Sky Sports News, says Ross. Fan says, why are we mocking Ollie? We all love Ollie. I'd love him to get the Bayern job. If we end up selling Rashford to PSG, how much do you think we should ask him for, says Ricky? I'd say somewhere between 70 and 100. I don't think it'll happen, though. But look, going back to what was said there, Terence, I want to talk about Bruno. I've heard a lot of people talking about Bruno today, and my stance is going to be very simple. I don't care. A few weeks ago, I stuck up for Rashford. Everybody went in on me. That's fine. I've got thick skin. Maybe it was a thick opinion. Whatever. On Bruno Fernandes, I don't like the pylon. I don't. I've seen it everywhere for 24 hours. Get rid of Bruno. We need to talk about Bruno. Bruno's shit. Take the captaincy off him. Fuck off Bruno. Sell Bruno. Bruno's a fucking waste of space. This, that, and the other. And I just think, you know what? I'm not going to be that guy. I love Bruno Fernandes. I remember when we didn't sign him that summer, the ship was sinking off Mallorca. If you know the rules, you know the rules. Big up the ship, big up Bruno. I wanted Bruno. I've always loved Bruno at the club. There's a big issue. There is a big Bruno issue. Like I've highlighted this the last few games. We've won 4 games in a row. He's the only player that hasn't put in a 7 out of 10. Even Rashford's had a 7 out of 10. And yet he's not had a very good season. So Bruno in the last few games has been average or below average. That's weird. That's weird to me. That's not Bruno Fernandes. But remember, I was ahead of the game with this. Remember about a month ago, there was this stat flying around that Bruno's created more chances than anyone in the Premier League this season at the start of January. I was like, this don't make fucking sense. This, as a Bruno fan, this doesn't make sense. What chances has he created? We've got a striker up front who never gets any service, and yet Bruno Fernandes has created the most chances in the league. And I looked at it, and a chance created can be a 5-yard pass 40 yards out to Anthony, who cuts in and shoots. That can be classed as a chance created. So look, Bruno's not had a great season. It's absolutely factual. He hasn't had a good season, but he is a good player. And instead of people saying, let's sell him, he's shit, I just don't agree with this. His mentality is absolutely what you want at Man United. In the dressing room, around the club, he's well loved. He wants Manchester United to be successful. On the pitch, he never stops running. There are certain players, we know them, who don't run. Some of them are on loan. Some of them might even still be here. Bruno never stops running. Indisciplined with his running. You know, he's all over the place. But something's not right. And we're not going to sell Bruno Fernandes in the summer, and we shouldn't do. But he's going to play every single game between now and the end of the season. He's going to go into the Euros and play every single game. He's going to have like 10 days holiday, and then he's going to be on tour with United, and then he's going to go into another big season. The volume of games is absolutely ridiculous that he's played, and the fact that people champion it is just backfired. He plays too many games. I think that he's played the most games in the whole of Europe in the last 18 months. That's just pure stupidity. And people talk about him, he's never injured. He needs a rest. I actually think that if Bruno Fernandes had just 2 weeks away from football and came back, we'd have a different player. Because you can see the fatigue in his decision-making, in his finishing. Like, I watched Bruno over the last 4 games. I think every game there's been a goal that he should have scored. There was one yesterday where he sort of shoots it wide along the ground. There was the one-on-one as well. I think Rashford cut it back to him on the edge of the box. I think same thing happened against Wolves. Same thing happened against Villa. Cutbacks on the edge of the box where he shoots them over the bar. He had one against West Ham, but it would have been ruled out for offside anyway, but it was on the edge of the box. Everything apart of Bruno's game at the moment has fallen apart. It's fallen apart. His passing, his shooting, everything has fallen apart. And that's not because he's become a shit player at 29 years of age. I think it's just purely fatigue. And I disagree with the people who are jumping on him. Look, again, it reminds me of the Ten Hag movement or the Rashford movement or the Sancho movement. There are just players that some parts of our fan base and the media don't like. And Bruno is one of those people. I've got friends who've never liked Bruno. Even when he was scoring goals, they just don't like him. They don't like Bruno. That's what it is. I can live with that. But I will argue the fact that he is a fantastic player and he is a really important player. And I do really like him. And I'm not throwing him under the bus because he's not playing well at the moment. I think there is a definitive reason for it. And I think I suspect it's fatigue. How do you solve that problem when he wants to play every single game, he never gets injured, and he's the captain of the team? And also, if you take Bruno Fernandes out of the team, how do you measure his captaincy? What if we don't win the last 4 games with Bruno without Bruno in the team? Because you never know what the captaincy is. The captaincy is what it is to the other 10 players. With Bruno not on the pitch, do we just crumble at Villa and lose when they equalise? With Bruno not on the pitch, do we keep going and get the late winner against Wolves? Do we get the same results with Bruno not on the pitch over the last 4 games? I would say no. Some of you would say yes. But the truth is no one can answer that. You can't quantify what his leadership is. But look, I don't think this is a problem that's going to go away. I don't think that the people who are saying sell him or he's playing shit, get rid of him, are going to get proven wrong. I think that there is a problem there that I don't know how we solve it. I really don't know how we solve it. I mean, part of me, I said this yesterday, part of me wishes that Mason Mount was fit, because whether Ten Hag would do it or not, it needs to be done. Like, it gets to a point yesterday where you do have to take him off for his own good. Like, I look at yesterday and I think, it got to a point where he's running on empty. He's missed the one-on-one. I think there's 20 minutes to go. And even I'm a hypocrite here, because people will say, but you said that we might not get the win without him on the pitch because he's the captain. But what do you do? Do you keep him on the pitch every minute of every game because he's the captain and then we're not seeing good performances? Or do you try and change it? And I just think that with 20 minutes to go yesterday, if Mason Mount's fit, I'd have made the substitution. And it could go wrong. The team could fall apart without Bruno on the pitch because he's the captain. It could go wrong. on the other hand, it could go right. Bruno comes off, realises there's accountability for a poor performance, you know, mentality change, and he realises his place is in doubt. I mean, look, sometimes competition's important. You know, a lot of people spoke about at the start of the season how Ten Hag wouldn't drop Rashford and there was no accountability for bad performances. How the favouritism wasn't doing anybody any favours. Rashford was getting picked every week. He wasn't doing very well. Other people deserved a chance. And eventually Rashford did get dropped, didn't he? And that led to Garnacho getting more starts. Every player has to have accountability. Varane got dropped for the Manchester derby for Evans and Maguire. So every player has to have accountability. Maybe some time out of the team for Bruno would be a good thing. But I'll tell you for free, I don't think Eriksen can do that role because Bruno is mobile and he is everywhere and Eriksen isn't. And we don't play a style of football where we can have an immobile number 10. So if Bruno's coming out of the team, I think the only mobile number 10 we've got is Mount and he's not fit. So it becomes a problem. Would I sell Bruno Fernandes in the summer? Well, look, absolutely not. But did I expect us to get Barada from Man City? No. Did I expect us to get Dan Ashworth from Newcastle? No. They say things come in three. That you know what? The funny thing is, I said this last summer, didn't I? I said, I think we need a sacrificial lamb in that club. And what I meant by that was, going into the last summer transfer window was, I said, we need to sell a player that's going to shock this fan base and shock, more importantly, that dressing room. You sell a player that no one expects to be sold and everybody in that dressing room knows nobody is safe. And it you know, it basically separates the weak from the strong. If you went into that dressing room in the summer and sold someone that you don't expect to get sold, everyone in that dressing room goes, shit. Well, I thought he was untouchable. But from a Barada, Blanc, Sir Jim, Sir David, Ten Hag, Ashworth point of view, you tell that dressing room, we're running this football club. I don't care how many Twitter followers you've got. I don't know how many goals you've scored. I don't care how many games you started last season. We run this football club and there's accountability and nobody is safe if they don't perform. I actually agree with that. I think there should be a sacrificial lamb in the summer. I don't know who it's going to be. But I do think, and I think it could happen. I think it could happen. I think it. I don't want to say too much because you do hear stuff, and it's too big to start hinting at it in February. But I do think there's a chance that there's going to be a massive sale that's going to make everybody sit up and go, "Well, that's a statement." But we'll just have to see if they're going to do that But I don't think Bruno's the right person to do, because when you talk about what Ben Foster was saying about Dan Ashworth, and Dan Ashworth will know who the dickheads are before he comes in, because he's an intelligent guy and it's easy. You know, you don't even need to be at the club to know who the dickheads are. You just research it over the last 3 years. You speak to people, don't you? They can't protect themselves. Those players in the dressing room can't just smile when Dan Ashworth turns up with an apple. He'll have spoken to people who used to be at the club, ex-coaches, ex-staff. He'll know who the dickheads are. But I don't think Bruno Fernandes is a dickhead. In fact, I know he's not. I think he's the sort of player that you want around Manchester United. But look, maybe it could happen. We know that the Saudis have offered big money for him. I just don't think Bruno would want that. If Kevin De Bruyne can be rotated, Bruno should be rested too, says John. I think he's in massive need of a rest, yes. KFJ says, Mark, I remember last year when Bruno didn't play for a few games and we were shit. If we would drop him, it wouldn't probably be for long, says KFJ. I don't think you can drop him at the moment. I don't think Eriksen's got the mobility. I think the key to resting Bruno is Mason Mount. And I think Ten Hag would do it, but he can't do it at the moment. The interesting thing was, for the few games that Mason Mount actually was available, he did used to bring Mount on and keep Bruno on, but he put Bruno on the wing. But if Mount was fit now, I don't think he'd put Bruno on the wing because he knows Garnacho's importance. You've got Rashford and Højlund. So I actually think if Mount was fit, we might well see Bruno being brought off a bit. But again, it comes down to injury, doesn't it? Luke Shaw's injured again. Martinez is injured again. Malacia is still injured. Mount is still injured. I mean, look, I know Liverpool are in a title race and they're moaning about injuries, but as have been consistent. Every point of this season, we've had 3 or 4 key players injured. All right, it's been different players, and sometimes it's been more than 4, but we've always had 3 or 4 key players injured. And Mason Mount is a key player. We spent £55 million on him, and we've got a number 10 that plays every minute of every bloody game. Of course he's a key player. Haters piling on Bruno, especially here. It's every game now. It's like they take notes. I've noticed even after 5 minutes into a game, the comment starts, says Nick P. Ashley says, I don't want Bruno out, but I do want him rested. And Robble says, if Mount was available, would you consider playing him ahead of Bruno? I love him, but there's no debate that he's been poor recently. Would you get Kimmich and sell Casemiro? That was from Robble. And Giovanni said about Kimmich and Casemiro. I think it's an interesting one. Do you think Bruno has burnt himself out, says Terence? Yeah, look, I think that my only reservation about the people that say, and somebody just said it quite rightly, KFJ said it, my only reservation is if you drop Bruno, we might lose. Because you can't put a price on a captain. I mean, we saw it with Roy Keane, and I don't think Bruno's Roy Keane, but I've played the game. I'm sure you've played the game. And when you've got a captain that is important, when they're not in the team, it's a big, big thing. Now, people will say, well, Bruno's a crap captain, he's petulant, but you don't know what Bruno is to Rasmus, or Garnacho, or Rashford, or Casemiro, or Mainu, or the back 4, or Onana. You don't know how important he is to them, because if he is important and he's not on the pitch, there'll be a drop-off. So that's the risk. He ain't playing well at the moment, but if you take him out of the team, how important is he to everyone else? Maybe he's not important at all. Maybe they play better without him. Maybe they don't respect him, but I suspect they do. And I suspect that without him in the team, we might see a drop-off. Look, I said it a few minutes ago. We're going to talk about Bruno, but actually he symbolises as the captain a lot of things. You could say the same about other players that you want out of the team. You could almost say the same about Ten Hag as well. Like, people who want Ten Hag to go, what would United be without Ten Hag? I mean, this is a guy that, you know, I think he's done remarkably well in difficult circumstances over the last 18 months. If you replace him, who comes in? Completely different ideas. There will not be a clear out in the summer because everyone will get a second chance. What happens to Mainu? What happens to Garnacho? What happens to Rasmus with a new manager who, with the backing of Ineos, says, I want an experienced striker up front. You know, I'm not having a winger who's not complete yet. I'm not developing a winger. I want a winger who's ready now. I'm not having an 18-year-old in the midfield. I want this guy who's ready now. He can come on for the last 20 minutes. You don't know what a new manager's going to come in and do. Do you want to sacrifice that? Do you want to risk that? Do you want to miss out on a clear out in the summer? Do you want to jeopardise the development of 3 really good young players? I mean, and who's this guy going to be as well? This is what I mean. People, I completely do not agree that fans can be picky about their accountability. If you've got the opinion to verbalise, get that manager out, get that Bruno out, get that Rashford out. If you can verbalise that, you can't stop halfway around and go, but I don't know what, it's not my job. How stupid is that? Sack Ten Hag, but I'm only a fan. It's not my job to find a replacement. And yet you found the gob to sack him. Are the club sacking him? No. But you're demanding on social media he gets sacked. So tell us what you're going to do. You can't sack the manager on social media and then not have an alternative. You can't sack the manager on social media and then go, I'm only a fan. It's not my job to find a replacement. The club ain't sacking him, mate. You're sacking him. So what are you going to do? You can't sack a manager and then not tell us what you're going to do about it because he ain't being sacked anyway. But you're gobbing off about it. Who are you replacing him with? Who are you going to replace Bruno with? Who are you going to replace Rashford with? How's the deal going to work? Obviously, it's hypothetical, but I firmly believe, and this is what we've built over 10 years, if I say sell Harry Maguire or I say sell Varane, I'm saying go and get Branthwaite and Todibo. And the deal will work like this. Harry Maguire's on 190k, Varane's on 350k. You're going to save a lot of money in wages. They won't cost as much as that. You're probably going to get about 25 million each for those players. If we're lucky, that's 50 million. Get Todibo for about 35. Branthwaite is going to cost a lot more, but maybe if you sell Greenwood, you can use a bit of that. You know what? Don't be a halfway house. Don't gob off about negativity and then don't find a solution. And look, I don't see enough people talking about this negativity and actually having a plan. It just seems to me, I don't like the style of play. I don't like Ten Hag. Well, who are you going to replace him with? And what's the jeopardy of that? The jeopardy of that is we won't clear out in the summer because the new manager will want to give everyone another chance, which cannot happen again. And also, what does that mean to the positivity of this team? What does that mean to the younger players? What does it mean bringing a new guy in? You know, we need to give this another year, in my opinion. Bruno missed the Liverpool game. We drew 0-0. The team can still perform if he gets a rest, says Robert. Yeah, but that Liverpool game was fucking hell, mate. That game, I don't even want to go back to that Liverpool game. I mean, that Liverpool game was horrific. I mean, that was literally, I've never seen a Man United side, and I'm sure older people have, but I can't recall. I mean, lucky escape. Yeah. You want to talk about lucky escapes? Anfield this year was a lucky escape. We offered absolutely nothing. They battered the shit out of us, and somehow we got a draw. I don't think that's a game where you can go, we didn't miss Bruno, because that wasn't a game. That was defence against attack. And we got a very, very good point. But yeah, it wasn't a game where you can say we did well without Bruno. I mean, we had Amrabat and Mainu as the holding midfielders, didn't we? I think McTominay played at 10. We did absolutely nothing on the attack. That was a good point. Mark, would you sell Rashford and get Rafael Leao from AC Milan? No, I wouldn't, Joseph. If we're going to sell Rashford, then I think you go for Elise or Neto. I don't think you go replace like for like. And what I mean by that is we don't need to spend... If Rashford went, you don't go and spend the whole lot on a replacement. You know, use the money better. That's my opinion. Look, thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash the like on the video and subscribe. It's been a great show as ever. And I would say, it even surprised me when I was doing it. I'd completely forgotten that Ben Foster was with Dan Ashworth at West Brom. And it was a fascinating insight to what Dan Ashworth's actually like as a person. So check that video out. It's on the homepage, me and Ben Foster at lunchtime. It's only a little one, but really good stuff on Dan Ashworth there as well. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Absolute legends. We're back in the morning, of course. Don't forget Man United are playing on Saturday this week, and we've got a midweek game next week. So some big games coming in. Thanks everyone for watching as always. I was going to say big up to the members, but I gave a lot of those memberships as well, so big up to me. But always, it's nice to see lots of badges in the chat. Thank you very much for your support as always. Take care, stay safe, and I'll speak to you all in a bit. Great show tonight, really enjoyed it.